Hey everyone, it's Alex and welcome to the Decks of the Week, the weekly series where I showcase the top 10 best decks in Marvel Snap. These decks are determined using untapped statistics. What we do is we filter by high infinite and high collection level, we sort them by win rate and use the cube rate as a secondary condition to kind of determine the ranking order. Honestly, the decks are fantastic, and if you would like to support the content, hitting the like button is the best thing that you can do. It's free and it's all that YouTube cares about. I also have a link down in the description below for Untapped if you're interested in signing up. With that being said, this week we actually have 11 decks because the bonus deck is going to be required for those weekend missions, because what you see here on the screen is a bonus deck that features both Valentina and Baron Zemo, neither of which naturally make the top 10 decks. So anyways, this is the best way to kind of knock the weekend missions out of the park. You're kind of satisfying both requirements for both weekend missions, or there's 3 of them, but anyways, for Valentina and for Baron Zemo at once. It's a good deck, and it is a Loki deck, so the worst comes to worst, you just Loki and win the game anyways, right? So this is what you're going to want to play if you're looking to deal with those weekend missions as quickly as possible, especially if you don't have a dedicated deck with either Baron Zemo or for Valentina. So anyways, this is the Val Zemo Loki deck at 54%. Let's take us to the top 10, and we start with Junk. Now this is currently the top Junk deck that's running White Widow. You have the Doc Ock still making this list, and of course Cannonball. Now Cannonball was all over the meta like in the last 3 weeks. His position has kind of come back a little bit. Still a very effective card, but we don't find him in like 3 of the top 10 decks, or I think he was in 4 3 weeks ago, right? So things are starting to calm down on the Cannonball front, which is what happens. There's ebbs and flows in the meta, and that's what you're seeing here. This deck does perform very well. Listen, I'm a Ravonna believer, and any Ravonna deck is a friend to me. That doesn't even make sense, but you get what I mean. Long story short, I love the list. I think it works really well. Professor X is back once again, another card that benefits from Ravonna. And the thing about Professor X is that a lot of people don't expect Pro X on turn 4, especially in lower MMRs. So you might be able to sneak some sneaky plays on top of that Nebula, for instance, or even on top of the Titania with something like a Professor X. So a really cool deck, 56% win rate and a 0.33 cube rate. Anything above 30 is generally considered pretty damn good. That's number 10. Number 9, we have straight up Loki. Now this is the traditional Loki here. Now this is performing better than the prior deck I showed you for the weekend missions with Zemo and with Valentina. This is currently the top end of the Loki spectrum. Now what I will say is the cube rate under 30 is a little lackluster, but in the hands of very talented high MMR players, Loki continues to be an absolute stellar choice for, well, high ladder play and of course for Conquest. So this is currently the deck that we see running. This one's running a Rogue. I personally like the addition with Red Guardian. Anytime you see Rogue, Red Guardian feels like a very natural replacement in many regards. We are seeing lots of Luke Cage because of the prevalence of, well, it's the weekend of Valentina. But as that kind of fades, I think that Red Guardian is probably an appropriate substitution for something like a Rogue. What I will say though is the deck performs just like you think it would. A very capable Loki deck. Quinjet into the disruption of Cable. It's just good. You have the bounce package of Elsa, Kitty Pryde, and Angela. It's just a good deck. And this is the one you want to play if you're looking to play some Loki this week. That's at number 9. Number 8 here, what we got is we have, I mean, it's getting a little long in the tooth, as they like to say. It's Helicarrier Discard. This is, I mean, Helicarrier Discard used to be one of the absolute top of the meta, but what happened is it's finding its way falling. You used to have an amazing win rate, an insane win rate, an incredible cube rate too, and it's still good, 57% and a 0.31 cube rate. That ain't too shabby. What's taking a lot off of it is the prevalence of Red Guardian. Red Guardian completely destroys Collector, it completely destroys Morbius, and it makes the Dracula a very risky play. At any point in the game, depending on what the Red Guardian player wants to disable, they have options all throughout this deck, and Red Guardian is gaining in popularity. I mean, honestly, it's probably one of my best favorite cards of the month, in my opinion. So, long story short, Helicarrier Discard, still a good deck, but some of the cards that have been added are starting to cause it some problems. So anyways, Helicarrier Discard is still a very good choice and a staple in the current meta. That takes us to a relatively new deck, I should say, which is Darkhawk Annihilus. Now, there's been some experimentation with Darkhawk over the last couple weeks, but none of the decks have been like absolute performers. we're starting to get there. We're starting to see some decks with Darkhawk start to really perform, and this one here at a 57% win rate in a 0.40 cube rate is a damn good shell. I really do like the idea of using Beast to generate some additional value with the likes of Korg, Nico, and of course, Rock Slide, while just honestly having something like a Sentry and a Nihilist is just enough to win games. I mean, Hood, Sentry, and Nihilist makes every deck better, and even though the Red Hulk got nerfed, it's still such a tremendous power play. And the risk, or not even the risk, the threat of playing that massive Red Hulk can really scare a lot of players out of games, keeping the win rate inflated. That being said, honestly, I like the disruption package here. I've been missing Darkhawk. I'm glad to see it making a bit of a comeback, and this is one of the best places you can play it currently in the week. That takes us to number 6 here, and we got Stature. Stature recently got buffed to a 5/7. And a lot of people are saying, hey Alex, why not the Black Bolt? Well, that's because Black Bolt's super annoying to play against, whereas Stature, it's just a value piece, kind of like a Miles Morales. Now, the deck here does feature Red Guardian, as I've talked about almost extensively and exclusively in this video so far, Miss Marvel. It's just a good cards deck. And I think the real winner here, honestly, is going to be Shadow King. Shadow King, especially during the Infinity Conquest kind of weekend, tends to steal a lot of cubes from Angela's. It steals cubes from Destroy players, Deadpools, Venoms, etc. Nobody expects Shadow King. And the key thing is from a tech perspective, it feels almost unfair sometimes that you can play Shadow King in one location and Shang-Chi in another. So you have two tech options to flip the locations in your hand on turn 6. It's pretty awesome, right? You used to be able to do that with Shang-Chi +1 with Zabu, etc., but now it's like the Shang-Chi and Shadow King combination making a massive comeback here. And none of these cards really care about getting hit with the Shadow King. You're not even running Angela in this deck. So the only thing that is problematic is Mobius and Mobius is very frequent in the current meta, which can negatively impact the Stature. But honestly, a 57% win rate in a 0.52 cube rate is truly remarkable. This is a good one if you're looking to play some Stature. That takes us into the top 5, and we got the new groove. I mean, listen, the Silky Smooth style decks have been performers ever since we saw a couple buffs, specifically to Elsa Bloodstone, to Kitty Pryde, and to Angela. I mean, actually, Kitty Pryde didn't really get buffed. Oh, she did a couple months ago, in fact. But, I mean, all 3 of them got nerfed. All 3 of them got slowly buffed back up. Now they're legit again, and the deck is performing very well. The inclusion of Red Hulk gives it that verticality, kind of vertical threat that it needed, and obviously Vision, Captain Marvel making the deck again, which is fantastic, especially when you play it on top of something like a Elsa Bloodstone, and then you have this amazingly powerful Captain Marvel able to win the game for you. It's a damn good deck, super flexible. Its win rate remains one of the highest at 58%. Its cube rate, though, starting to pull down a little bit, but still at 0.35, which is exceptional in all, in the grand scheme of things. So definitely a very good deck coming in at number 5. Number 4 is a surprise contender, and I actually did cross-reference this with a couple other sites to make sure that C2 was actually performing as high as it would appear. And it is. At a 0.50 cube rate and a 58% win rate, C2 is making a comeback. One thing I will say, though, is that the game sample on this particular deck is on the lower end. So there's going to be a little more variance in the expectations of how this will perform, especially when I release a video like this, and then more people start to try it. But ultimately, the deck's performing, and it's pretty cool to see. I mean, listen, you got the Negasonic, which takes care of like the Red Hulks. You got the Goose that does the exact same thing. Nightcrawler being extremely mobile. The flexibility of Nico, so you can like copy the Cerebro, or you can give +2 to the Cerebro. And Elektra might be some coping, honestly, but in my experience, I'm like, damn, I can just take out their Nebula, or I can just, it's pretty cool what you can do with an Elektra late in the game, especially when you don't have a 6-drop in this deck. Your top end is the Blue Marvel, and so ultimately, it's a pretty good time to play. And with Nocturne coming out, you're going to want to play your Storm while you still can, because I think Nocturne is going to eat Storm for breakfast. We do have the next deck here, which is going to be the Asgard tech here. One of the absolute best in the game right now. 56 cube rate, 58% win rate. One of the absolute best decks, highest win rates in Marvel Snap. And it's beautiful. I recently just did a video on it, and honestly, the real champ here is going to be Quake. Quake was stealing so many games from me, I cannot begin to explain to you. I fell back in love with this card, and I think that moving forward, a lot of my brews are going to incorporate Quake, and Shadow King was the same. Absolute chef's kiss. What's unique about this deck is it features no 1-drop, so you're skipping turn 1 every single game, and you're setting yourself up for like these very strong tempo plays on 2, not even on 2 really. I mean, Lizard I guess is, but It's 3, 4, 5, and then it's the 6, right? On turn 6, you have so many options. You can be disruptive with Lady Deathstrike. You can, Quake and, Shadow King and whatever. You can Shang-Chi and Quake. You can Shang-Chi and Shadow King. It's often Shang-Chi plus one of the tech cards to make some magic happen. Ultimately, oh, don't forget, by the way, Miss Marvel and into the, the Stormbreaker or the Mjolnir, which often, help you to activate the Miss Marvel effect. Can't forget about the Mjolnir and the Stormbreaker. Regardless, though, really like this deck. One of the most fun decks I've played in the longest time. I really suggest you give it a shot. Truly, truly a blast. As we go on to number 2 here, and it's, damn, man. Listen, I'm so happy that Spectrum and Ongoing is making comeback. Omega Red's here. We got Man-Thing. So damn good. And the most recently buffed Jean Grey is in this deck as well. It's a thing of beauty, honestly. And on that note, another thing of beauty is we're almost at 90,000 subscribers. And if you're not subscribed yet, consider hitting the button. It's my personal goal and like a lifetime goal to get to 100,000 subscribers. And we might do it in 2024. We're actually well on our way. So if you like the content and you like to be a part of this community, I just invite you to hit that subscribe button. It would mean the world to me, honestly. Just like it means the world to me and Cozy that Jean Grey got buffed. I mean, Cozy was all over Jean Grey getting buffed. It was, I haven't seen him smile like that in a while. He almost forgot about Arrow for a second. That's how much he loved this buff. And I gotta tell you, I'm not a big Mojo fan, but I can slam him into a Jean Grey deck. We got Punisher unironically doing incredible work here. 59% win rate on this deck. The cube rate a little lower than like the Asgardian one, and it just edges it out in win rate right now. But honestly, a fantastic deck. Just be very wary of how you play Cosmo, because if you play Cosmo in a way you're like, well, now I can't play my Spectrum. That's just something. That's a way to trip up on yourself. Just there a little bit. So anyways, number 2 is going to be the new Spectrum. As we go into number 1, and it's Pixie Deathstrike. This deck has been an absolute performer. And unironically, Lady Deathstrike, one of the best cards in the game right now. Just doing so much work. And I think a major part of it is the way the junk meta is going. You had White Widow over the last couple weeks kind of wreaking havoc on the meta. And Lady Deathstrike just says, nope, see ya, Green Goblin. See it. It just cleans everything. Cleans up the mess. It's been an immensely powerful and effective card. Red Hulk's in here. And I gotta say, this deck, I believe, originated from Jeff Hoagland. And this has been consistently one of the best decks in the meta over the last couple weeks. So kudos to Jeff. Absolutely nailed it here. It just has everything. And the snap equity provided by Pixie is incredible. Because listen, when I was playing and I Pixied and I snap, almost everyone retreated. People don't want to stay in those games, especially when Mobius comes down on 3. Then they're like, oh, right? The deck really does perform. I love it, and there's a reason why it's currently one of the absolute best decks in Marvel Snap. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys. Hit the like button if you like to support the content, and we'll see you on that next Marvel Snap video.